Welcome everybody to the realm of ridiculous, where we talk about Warhammer, but it's old and not like with the space and stuff. But if you enjoy this podcast and you want to support us, head on over to patreon.com/AdeptusRidiculous. You can get yourself all kinds of awesome perks and benefits, and check out the merch at orchidate.com. It's awesome. There's new posters, like always. It's great stuff. But we do have an advertisement for this episode, so I will not keep you waiting. Roll it. So before we hop into the episode, this one is sponsored actually by another miniature game, the Infinity by Corvus Belli. This is actually a game that has been referenced to us on many occasions, and I've seen people actually paint up and show their models in the Discord. It is a smaller scale skirmish type game, entirely related to a more traditional and significantly less grim, dark sci-fi universe. Specifically, what we're talking about today is the Essentials Start Here pack. It is an immediate initial getting right into the game pack that has everything that you need to begin your play. For any of you who are interested in getting into it, it is the perfect entrance point for Infinity. It includes terrain, miniatures, booklet with the rules, we got tokens, we have dice as well. It's really easy to get into the brand new edition, the N5 rules system as well. And it'll also help you get introduced to the background and the general universe and character lore. It's a very dynamic game. It's got a much different type of sci-fi style. And overall, it's just a really great way to hop into the game. So if you'd like to check it out and get started with the Essentials pack now, you can go ahead and go down into the description and click the link there to check it out, give it a shot, enjoy yourself a smaller scale skirmish game, and honestly learn Infinity super easily. Thank you again, Infinity, for sponsoring this video, and let's continue on with our topic. And we're back.
Damn, let's go.
Damn, let's go, as they say.
As the kids say, damn, let's go. That sure was a Poggy Woggies.
They do absolutely say that. Shai, if you do that, I'm going to stab you in the... Oh, thank God.
I was going to say, after the last episode, if Shai hit us with a new poster, ooh.
I don't have time. There's too many posters. I'm being drowned in artwork.
But at least it's good artwork.
That is true. It is good artwork.
So, to be fair, yep.
It is good artwork. So... Yeah. I gotta be perfectly honest, DK. I have an idea of what this might be.
Okay.
But I have actually no idea what it is.
Do you want to take a wild stab in the dark at what you think it is?
I think it's something involving chaos. I think it's chaos.
I mean, that's a good guess, and you are right. It does involve chaos.
Is it
Can
the
you
chaos?
Be more specific?
Is it the Chaos Viking ones?
It is the Chaos Vikings. It is the Norsca.
I don't even need a quote. I just have the soul read.
How exactly did you have a pinpoint on that also?
It's one of the few things we have not done yet, and also they look really cool, and I imagine that we wanted to do them.
I mean, that is fair. I think Shai had accumulated a list of the stuff we hadn't done, and it's actually quite a bit longer than we thought.
Right, but like the big factions, right?
Oh, that's true. That's true. You want the quote anyway?
Yeah, why not?
The quote was going to be, "From the harsh snowlands they came, blue of eye and blonde of hair, and tattooed upon arms, face, and chest. Their eyes are mad with bloodlust, for blood they thirst, driven forth on the whims of the gods they seek to appease."
Okay, if it wasn't for the bloodlust thing, the blue eyes, blonde hair, and tattoos from the icy, etc., that would have probably tipped me off regardless.
Yeah, I think you would have gotten it. If you had gotten the quote, I think you would have gotten it. And I feel like today's episode is going to be a little different for me, because usually I feel like I try and do like, oh, let's pinpoint every little moment of their history. This one, I feel like I made a more like general, like, hey, this is Norsca. This is how they settle. This is how they fight. This is what they believe in. So it should be a nice... I don't want to say concise episode, but we shouldn't be here for like 8.5 hours.
Okay, you've said that before.
I have, but I feel pretty good about this one. So, And God, there's so many characters and there are so many battles going on in Norsca that, listen, pitchforks down. Norsca feels like it has so much stuff going on. We could very easily do part 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So
Okay.
anyway,
That dude's got a bunch of heads on a chain.
oh, he sure do. I believe, if that's who I think it is, we will be talking about him because I have 3 notable Norscans that we're going to talk about kind of towards the end of the episode. And I believe that is one of them. I think his name is Wulfric. But
So the general name is Norscan. That's like the name of the people because it's Norsca.
I think it's like Norscans or like the Norsii, or I think some people literally just call them the Norse.
I mean, I mean that makes the most sense to me because it's so obviously what they're doing. But you know,
the Northmen, sure. But their lands are deep in the snowy, desolate northern reaches. They are surrounded basically by frigid waters all around. There's the Sea of Claws, there's the Sea of Chaos. To the south of them is Troll Country, which is just riddled with all manner of beasts and obviously trolls. You go further south from that, you've got Kislev at the border, and then further south from that, you have the Empire.
wait. Okay, hold on. I'm looking at the map right now. So I see lots of the 8-pointed star of chaos on the up. Okay, and then whatever the hell is on the top of the map.
Yeah, that's the Chaos Wastes.
To the realm of chaos.
Yeah, that's the Chaos Wastes, where it's like this horrible hellscape. Obviously, it's a horrible hellscape where sort of like the realm of chaos and man start to sort of intermingle and mix. I think there are literally portals into, like, if you wanted to go pay Khorne a visit, which we'll talk about in one of our notable characters, you could go to the Chaos Wastes, and if you survived, I think you can literally find a portal to go to his domain.
So I'm looking at it here. So this whole top area is chaos, and then you've got Norsca, which I'm assuming is also chaos, and then
so below the Sea of Chaos, that's Norsca, and that's just like, I mean, that's like essentially the way I read it is it's like Kislev, where it's just like, oh God, it is bitter cold. Oh God, how do we survive here? Oh God, this sucks.
But where is Kislev?
See Troll Country, if you go south of that, it should be on like kind of the border of the Empire.
Oh, so it's
I don't think
below Troll Country. Gotcha.
So, yeah, if you look at the second map that Shai posted, you can kind of see where it goes from Troll Country, and then there's that border, and then it says Kislev. There's Prague right smack on the
I
border
see
of Troll
Kislev. It's
Country.
way in the bottom right. Okay.
Yeah, way in the bottom right.
So if I'm not mistaken, is the main thing separating Kislev and the Empire from the chaos just 1, sea, and 2, a wasteland of trolls that will just beat the shit out of you?
Yep.
Okay, so is it safe to say that these trolls are what's keeping the people like okay, or keeping them from like both attacking each other nonstop?
Nope, because Norsca is always invading Kislev, and they're always invading the Empire, and Norsca, and we'll talk about this a little bit, Norsca is also known very well for their longships, so even if the trolls kept them out, they would just sail through the Sea of Claws and get at the Empire and Kislev that way.
Of course, they're known for their longships.
And like Shai said, trolls have joined the Chaos Forces, so depending on how crazy with chaos you are and how much your god favors you, the trolls might help you invade Kislev.
Okay, wait, might help you? Oh, because the trolls just don't care. Because they just want to eat and beat people up. Typical.
Yeah. So naturally, the Norsii are brutal barbarians who, when the great catastrophe happened, when the poles of the fantasy realm just and spewed forth all manner of chaos hell, it would be these sort of northern barbarian tribes of men that would, instead of just, oh my God, we gotta, close the doors and shut everything out, oh, we need to kill chaos, they were the ones that were like, you know what? let's worship these gods. Let's make a pact with them because God, they sure are so powerful. Like, oh wow, the power they hold, they deserve to be worshipped. And so they would bind their souls to chaos to form sort of the foundation of their culture's dark worship and ritual sacrifices to their new ruinous powers. And the dark gods would mutate them. Some could even shapeshift. They would ruin their minds and make them like very chaos pilled and make them bloodthirsty for combat, obviously.
Now, I mean, what's so ruining about being a little chaos pilled once in a while? I
Yeah,
mean,
they're just a little chaos pill, just a little treat, just
I,
as a little treat, you know.
I mean, honestly, I would say like being chaos pilled is great because the emperor is an asshole, but this is fantasy, and the empire actually seemed pretty cool, so I don't really mind it as much. Karl Franz seems like a baller.
Yeah, I was gonna say it depends which time period you're in and which emperor you got.
True, we don't have like Jimmy the Fat or whoever it was.
Yeah. I forgot about it. Yeah, the fat, the ignorant, the ignoramus, the yeah.
I mean, I do. That is a pretty cool dog.
Yeah, I mean, hey, the chaos giveth unto its loyal soldiers, right?
Well, chaos also taketh, but that's fair.
Chaos does also taketh away. But the Norsii would pillage, plunder, and obliterate all who would stand before them and the ruinous powers of chaos. There are Norsii shamans who can summon infernal demons to fight by their side. They are doing blood rituals. They have no problem sacrificing their own kin, their family, to offer praise and support of their dark gods. Also, there is basically nowhere on the fantasy map that is safe from Norsei invasions. Even the far-off lands of Lustria, where the lizardmen make their home in sort of that exotic climate, that's been attacked and pillaged by Norscans in their trademark longships. I think we talked about that in the Lizardmen episode. They made landfall and they're like, oh, it's cool if we, set up all of our shops here. And the Lizardmen had to drive them off. Their longships are specifically crafted to just be able to just turn on a dime. They will not have a Titanic problem, and they will not run into glaciers and ice caps because they are just specifically built to just be very maneuverable, very quick, very And that makes sense because they're in, the frozen wastelands of the Sea of Chaos, Sea of Claws. You really got to be able to, maneuver around glaciers, ice caps, and stuff like that. Shai said, I think in historical sense, it's a reference to the fact that Vikings were the first people from Europe to visit America, not that fucker Columbus.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but also, they didn't write about it. Except for the fact they probably did, but don't worry about it. Just let it be.
Except for the fact they didn't write about it,
but they probably did. But they probably I don't know. I don't know history. All I know is about that one dude who's like Amerigo Vespucci, and I'm like, oh, what a guy, America, and that's all I remember.
Hey man, do you know what happened in 1914?
I do actually.
Anyway, but naturally, with all their longships and all their raiding parties, naturally their closest neighbors of Kislev and the Empire usually suffer the brunt of the Norscan raids. It should also be noted that the barbaric nature of the Norsei, it's not entirely because they're chaos tainted. Sure, a part of that is because they're chaos touched and oh my god, that makes my mind a little stir crazy. But a lot of it comes from just the environment that they live in. They're in the far north where it is bitter cold for most of the year, so you gotta be kind of burly and muscular and crazy to survive not only the blighted cold, but like we said, they are right next to troll country. They are right next to the chaos wastes. They are very tribal people, and there are several tribes in the north that are always at war with each other. So if you're not trying to fend off the cold, whatever manner of chaos comes out and maybe doesn't recognize you or is part of a rivaling tribe or chaos band, if a troll doesn't feel like joining you, you have to be sturdy enough to be able to kill that and survive. And oh, by the way, your dark gods demand sacrifices, and they demand that you stamp out the weak in their name.
Right. And if you don't, then you get sucked into a portal to hell.
Yeah, probably. But, or, and we'll talk about this later, the thing the Norscans fear most is actually not being recognized by their god, or maybe looking a little cowardly. They're not really super concerned with death. They just, oh man, we can't embarrass our gods. We can't look weak in front of them. And there's sort of this great line from the wiki that basically sums them up pretty well. For the Norscans, the plow and the sickle are not their tools. Their tools are the sword and the axe. What their own lands cannot provide them, they take from lesser men.
So they are very much this classic stereotype of a Viking, which is go and pillage and be nomadic and keep on going and moving and pillaging, and then
Got it.
Okay, yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
You got it.
Though I think I remember reading somewhere that the Vikings weren't like as pillage heavy as initially assumed, and they actually relied on themselves quite a bit. But maybe I'm just since this is obviously roided out like chaos stereotype Viking, the assumption, at least with the fiction here, is that they do nothing but raid and pillage.
Yep.
Cool.
And the various tribes of Norsca are each ruled by sort of this anointed king who has been chaos marked by the gods after proving themselves in warfare and in combat, and they gained the blessing of the ruinous power, which is interesting because as I was looking up, like, oh, what does a mark of chaos look like? And it's like, you got your usual corn thing with the blood, and apparently if you're chaos marked by Nurgle, it's just this big infected pus-filled boil, and it's like, look at me, Dad. Oh boy, look at the, and it's very gross.
You got this giant goiter on your neck or something.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I'm blessed by the gods.
He immediately throws up.
Yeah. Oh yeah, love that. Oh, that's our king. But it is the desire of every Norscan warrior to not only attain the mark of chaos, which you need the mark of chaos to be able to like rule and be seen as a leader, but they want to hold conquest and spill so much blood in the name of chaos that they become a chaos champion bestowed with their god's blessings. Or even rarer, they want to be recognized by chaos undivided and become an ever-chosen, the chaos champion of the undivided, who is fit to unite all the tribes of the north and pillage against the rest of the fantasy world. And as we've said, there's only been 13 of those ever-chosen chaos champions, and we'll talk about one of them later. And it should be noted that when it comes to the Norsicans, oftentimes they won't be like, hey everyone, I'm a Norscan. But instead, they prefer to be identified by sort of like what tribe they're a part of. So if you're from the Thralls tribe, they would much rather be like, yeah, I am from the Thralls tribe of the north, rather than just being like, hey, yo, I'm Norscan. And interestingly enough, I found, after reading a bunch of stuff on this, the term Norscan itself is a term that the Empire came up with, because the Empire needed to give them this sort of like, oh yeah, everyone up in the north is our enemy. The north is one single entity that we need to fight. But in Norsca, they're like, we're not one single entity. We're tribes. We're nomadic tribes. We're all fighting each other anyway. Screw being identified as being a part of that rival tribe of weaklings to my left. I'm my own damn tribe. I'm a Sarl. I'm an Aisling or whatever. And apparently it is also the case that the sort of northernmost tribes in Norsca are just the absolute craziest and most chaos-pilled of the Norscans. Like, it's kind of hard to negotiate with them, because they're probably the ones that are like the sort of frothing at the mouth, just blinded by rage berserkers. While the more southern-based tribes are like, they're still kind of icky with that chaos stuff, but you can actually negotiate with them. People have been able to make trades with them, and they don't just go immediately stupid feral on you.
Okay, so basically the farther you are from the realm of chaos, naturally, the more acceptable you are to work with them.
Exactly. It seems like the closer you are to the chaos wastes, the more chaos tainted your mind is, the more crazy you are, the more battle ravaged you are, and yeah.
Gotcha.
But if the dark gods call for war, everybody goes to war. It doesn't matter if you're from the north or the south. It doesn't matter if you hate everyone that's not from Norsca. It doesn't matter if you trade with them. If the gods call you, you fight. And while the Norscans might seem like they're all just kind of brainless warriors who, like I said, are constantly frothing at the mouth, like I said, they do have like legit merchants and traders. They'll take their long ships, and instead of doing, just raiding parties looking to kill everything, they're looking for new lands. They're looking for exotic spices, exotic trades, new wares. It seemed a little confusing because like some places were like, oh yeah, the Norscans have made trading colonies that were like mostly peaceful, and oh yeah, people love to trade with the Norscans sometimes, but apparently every apparently every Norscan trading colony comes with like Norscan raiders and other Norscans not really big fans of these trading posts, so they're constantly being like raided or they are harboring raiders. So it's kind of weird. It's like trade at your own peril with the Norscans, I guess, because who knows if there's a raiding party waiting for you.
I mean, I feel like any kind of making a deal with chaos. You haven't seen this yet, but in a popular Emperor text-to-speech episode, they're like talking to the Dark Eldar, and one of the Dark Eldar guys is just like, I assure you, trusting us, the Dark Eldar will not bite you in the ass anytime later. And it's just, I kind of get that same feeling. It's like, oh yeah, I'm going to trade with chaos. Lovely.
Yeah, I'm gonna trade with Kamara, and it's like,
But I guess hubris comes in many forms. The amount of people who are, part of yeah,
and I suppose it is like you probably would find some pretty exotic things from a Norscan trading outpost, right? Like if you were a warrior, I got to imagine they've got some weird weapons, weird talismans. Even if they aren't chaos pilled, Norscans are pretty great at making weapons. They're really good blacksmiths. You've seen them decked out in all of their plate armor. So sometimes, like if you're a warrior or something, it might be worth it to just take that risk and be like, hopefully there's no raid on this day at this trading post, because like, ooh, some of that Norscan armor or some of that Norscan fur.
Yeah. I mean, if you're in the cold wastes, I mean, I'm sure they're quite warm in that stuff.
Mm-hmm. And Norscans do also just enjoy kicking back and having like these sort of communal festivities where they get together, they have drinking contests, they brag about their feats in battle. Like they're known to have like crazy arm wrestling contests, they spar with each other, and they just have these like big sort of drunken parties where they're just like, oh, did you see how cool that raid was? Ska! And apparently, like as crazy as these sort of communal festivities get, and they are Norscan barbarians, apparently it never turns into a fatal affair where they just start killing each other. Because to Norscans, sort of killing one of your own without any reason is just like a very like, oh, that's shameful. That is a shameful deal.
Interesting. Without a reason, that is.
Yeah, exactly. Like if they dishonor you or they steal from you or something like that, sure, go ham, but it's like, oh man, we're just having a good time, there's no need to kill anybody, come on, man.
That's very not chaosy.
Yeah, surprisingly there are a lot of moments like that where it's like, they are not so chaos pilled that they are just like, without reason. Like they still have a big time sense of community among their tribes.
That's okay. I mean, that's interesting because, like, for the most part, whenever I think of Khorne, like, I feel like some guy looks at them funny and then they put the axe to his head. you know?
That is very corn-pilled, sure. But that's true. They aren't all corn. I think corn is the most popular because and I think I'll mention this later. Obviously, corn is the most popular because for the most part, Norskins are raiding, pillaging, marauding barbarians. So corn obviously tends to be the more popular one because, blood for the blood god. But by and large, Norsicans will kind of just worship chaos undivided because it's like, oh yeah, we might like corn the most, but we want gifts from everybody. We don't just want Korn's gift. We also want gifts from Zinch. We also want gifts from Slanesh. We want gifts from Nurgle. And I also think depending on the season, like I think I was reading that if there is a particularly bad season of crops, they worship Nurgle. And they're just like, Nurgle, man, come
Nurgle's
on,
garden.
help us with the crops, get rid of the infestation. Come on, Nurgle, give us your gifts. So they do kind of just worship like all of them. Corn's the most popular, but they worship like all of them. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I guess that makes a bit more sense. I think it's, I mean, because I think Chaos Undivided, is Chaos Undivided a more common thing in fantasy? Because I feel like it happens a lot else, or like it happens in 40K sometimes, but it seems like there's a lot more of it in fantasy. Maybe I'm wrong.
It definitely feels that way, to be honest, especially with how prominent the Ever-Chosen champion of Chaos Undivided is and how important that Ever-Chosen is to the story. It definitely feels like Undivided is way more popular in fantasy.
Gotcha. Okay.
But let's also not pretend like the Norscans are good people either, because one thing they love to do is they love taking thralls, which are literal slaves.
Love that. Love that.
Love that. And every raid they go on, they will always take slaves. And it can be men, women, children, or defeated warriors. And as you can imagine, shock of all shocks, the life of a thrall, not great. Not great. Sometimes if you're lucky, you just get sent off for forced labor, just help build ships. But more often than not, the thralls are probably going to be sacrificed to the dark gods. Because, of course, chaos needs human sacrifices. And what better to sacrifice than a human thrall?
Chaos loves their sacrifices. One would argue they kind of live off of it.
Yeah, they kind of do, don't they? They sure do.
Everyone is like, no, the Tyranids aren't evil. They're just hungry little guys. Like, the Chaos need to be hungry too.
Yeah, Chaos is hungry too. I was also reading that the long ships that they raid on are actually mostly crewed by these thralls, which actually kind of made sense to me because I was like, oh, why would you let the slaves But then I was like, man, I think everyone has seen a movie with like a ship full of slaves that are like chained to the oars and you gotta row. So I was like, actually, that kind of makes sense that they would make the slaves do all the rowing of the boats.
I always found it interesting whenever I watched the Northmen, and basically it was like, oh yeah, this is a pretty good movie, Vikings, all the usual kind of thing, and then they just like put a bunch of people in a church or something and they just burn it to the ground. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. And they're like shoveling like women and children in there. I'm like, lovely.
Lovely.
Great stuff.
And actually, I was reading that a rather large part of their fighting force is just these thrall slaves that they've collected. And they'll just send them out into combat and be like, go, fight. And apparently the thralls just love it. They love when they get a chance to be a part of the action because they're like, oh, thank God I am not in forced servitude. I'm just out here fighting for my life, glory of combat, glory of battle. Maybe, hell, maybe they'll lose sight of me and maybe I'll escape. This is the highlight of my day, is getting unchained and just going to battle for my captors. Also, because the Norscans are mostly, like we said, kind of nomadic barbarians, they set up their settlements with sort of very specific specifications in mind. And it's sort of the obvious thing that any nomadic tribe would look for. Obviously, they need plentiful resources. They need animals to hunt for food, fertile soil to just grow basic necessities, lumber for building, stuff like that. And obviously, as barbarians, they want a very defensible spot for their encampments. When they make a settlement as their rating, they want a very defensible spot. So ideally, they want to be surrounded by all sides by like mountains or terrain so that you can't get ambushed from the sides or from the back. And if there is a foe coming, they can only come from one direction and you can see them long before they see you.
I mean, that
Oh.
kind of goes along with that kind of fighting style, I would assume.
Yep. Yep. Although sometimes they'll set up their encampments in very dangerous spots. But that's just because usually it's like the chaos gods will give them the vision and be like, I need this crazy relic, go get it. And the only way they can do that is setting up shop in like the middle of a barren plain where they can be ambushed. But hey, chaos told me to do it, so I got to do it.
I must say, like, I mean, it seems that the Chaos Thralls, I mean, they're obviously slaves. They're not very happy about this. But I wasn't sure if they were kind of like just general cultists or if they're just straight up slaves.
They're just straight up slaves.
Ah, good to know. Because sometimes, like, those slaves love to be cannon fodder because they're some smaller person getting ready for the dark gods.
Yep. I think the Norscan slaves are just like, hooray, I'm not being sacrificed, and maybe something good will come of this. It sure is better than the alternative. And actually, if I was reading right, another really awful thing that the thralls have to do is whenever the Norscans are done making a longship, obviously you need sacrifices to the dark gods, and I think as they roll the ship to the beach, they just set up like a line of thralls and they just have the boat just roll over them and kill them as like ritual sacrifices before it gets into the water. Which is just
It's a little funny.
it is a little funny.
It's a little
I'm pretty
funny.
sure I read that, and listen, if someone in the comment section wants to correct me and be like, no, DK, that didn't happen, that's fine. I choose to believe it's real, and I'm pretty sure it is.
It's just, I don't know. There's a certain level of like, this is very smoking duck gif filled.
Classic.
It's so like classic chaos.
Classic. Oh, Shai said it's real. Let's go. I'm so glad. Oh man, I was like, man, I hope that wasn't a fever dream because that's so funny. Also, being in a Norsca settlement doesn't mean you can just go around and do whatever you want and just be all chaos pilled and face no repercussions. Norscan settlements have this sort of law. They call it the Vergild. I don't know how you pronounce it, whatever. Which is more or less like if an offense is committed and it's tried upon you, you have incurred upon yourself a debt that needs to be paid. The accused can defend themselves in front of the leader of the settlement. They're called Jarls in Norsca. And you can defend yourself, and if you're found innocent, great, no problem. But if you're found guilty, that Jarl will put some sort of fine on you. Some of these fines can be paid with money, but it is still a chaos settlement, so of course the fine can also be to pay with a limb. In extreme cases, if say a wife or child is lost, there are certain tribes where the punishment might be, okay, you led to the direct death of this dude's wife and child. Now you must give him your wife and child.
Oh, so they take eye for an eye very literally.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Huh.
There was also an example listed where if you assault another man's wife, they could very easily force you. If you're found guilty, they will force you to become a eunuch for the severity of your crime.
I'm very sorry. I do not know what a eunuch is.
They castrate you and they cut off your junk.
Okay, I love that. So DK says they castrate you, and then Shai posts an image of a dude with two axes and says, "Give me your balls." Both correct statements, mind you. The delivery is slightly different.
Yeah, I figured you were like
A guy who likes to be castrated? What am I, DK? What am I?
No, I just figured you knew what a eunuch was, because I was like, oh, that's something that comes up in like Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones, very pop culture.
Did not watch much Game of Thrones.
Okay, gotcha.
That being said, I unfortunately had a chat member inform me of what a hymen was for the first time in like a year ago, 2 years ago.
A hymen, like the when you
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, because
right.
they went. There was a first time chatter or sub, and their name was Hymen Breaker 69, and I was like, "What the hell is a hymen?" And then chat was like, "You're making a joke, right?" And I just don't. I tell you that American sex education ain't great.
Which chat? Hymen Breakers.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. Jesus Christ. Another interesting tradition for some Norscan tribes also is that they kind of believe in the idea that there can be no life without death first, or no death without first life. So some Norscan tribes, if there is a childbirth, they're just like, oh shoot, that's an omen of impending doom, because you can't have life without death. So if we're having a birth, somebody's about to die. Someone in our community is about to die. So it is a very common ritual that if there is a birth in one of these tribes, they will ritualistically kill a slave to satisfy the spirits.
Oh, so it's like, hey, congrats, it's a baby boy. And then like this one slave is like, oh no.
Oh shit. Yep, and it's like that is the death that needs to be paid for the life.
Gotcha.
And there are some Norscan tribes that actually revere birth, and they're the exact opposite, where they're like, oh my god, this is a hallmark occasion. And I hate talking about this, but this was such a gross detail I found in the wiki that I simply have to do it. So, like I said, they're just like, oh, the gods could not have blessed us with something so amazing as childbirth. Holy wow, what a thing. And so the father sometimes is so like, oh my god, how can we further, make such a glorious occasion? Oh, I know. I will eat the afterbirth material, and that will bestow upon me great power and understanding.
Oh, that happens in real life. What do you mean? People eat the placenta.
Wait, really?
Placenta. Sorry, I'm Californian pilled. I said placentia, as in the
People
city.
eat the afterbirth stuff that just kind of really?
I mean, people like it is. There are some customs that eat the placenta. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
I read
stop.
it and I thought it was very I was like, oh, why would you eat that? Don't do that. Oh no.
No,
that very chaos filled. Oh,
that totally, absolutely is a thing that has occurred in the past.
Oh, okay. I figured it was. I don't know. My first thought after the birth would not be to just be like, nom, 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 yummers.
Trust me, I think it's gross as shit. But it
but it does happen.
It is a thing people do. Yes.
Okay. Now, this might seem a tad obvious by this point, but Norscan religion is obviously completely centered around the worship of the chaos gods.
Wow.
And like we mentioned before, the Norscans kind of hold Khorne in higher standard than the other gods, because obviously, like I said, they're mostly barbarian warrior tribes, and their way of life just tends to lean towards Khorne, like blood for the blood god. We're pillaging, rampaging, chaos-pilled warriors, so of course, but they do still kind of just worship chaos undivided, so they can just reap the benefits from all the dark gods. And they worship the absolute strength and power of the dark gods. Like I said before, the reason they are so fervent about the dark gods is because they've sort of seen the influence the dark gods have. They've seen demons. They've seen just how powerful the ruinous powers are. And they're like, whoa, that's who you need to worship. They are so strong. They deserve our worship. And worshiping these guys it's the only one true way to live. You gotta seek the favor of these powerful entities. And so when they look at the pantheon gods of like the South, of the Empire, of Kislev, they're just like, y'all are just a big joke. Y'all are just a big fucking joke. Please tell me you have skin wolves on your list. I do not, actually.
Wait, skin wolves?
That does sound like a very chaos-pilled entity of wolves made of skin or something. That seems very... Please enlighten, if you will, Shy.
I'm assuming these are not wolves made of skin, or wolves that skin people.
I would almost assume it would be wolves made of skin.
They are skin wolf. I don't.
But yeah, also they do worship daemon princes, and there is, like I said, there is a deity of the sea.
Demon princes. The A in there is just British GW shenanigans.
I say it every time.
I know.
Man.
It's Matt Damon princes.
Damon. I say it every time.
I know. It's demon. It's still demon. I know. It took me a while to get it out of me.
It's been 4 years. I still say the A. But there's a pretty important demonic deity of the sea that I mentioned earlier. Their name is Myrmidus. That's the one where they like roll over the thralls to gain Myrmidus's favor because they're seafaring, rampaging, marauding barbarians. So of course, hey, you want Myrmidus's blessing. You don't want him mad at you. You want safe voyages, clear voyages. Let's go. And another like super interesting thing that I read was, for the most part, the Norsii sort of perceive the mortal world as an illusion. It's not real. The mortal world is essentially an illusion that the dark gods have put before them to test their mettle and for them to prove themselves worthy. And if a Norscan receives like a mutation, like say like the chaos god's like, oh, let me give you a little gift, boop, and they like transmute their arm into a tentacle, the Norscans are like, oh wow, look at this gift. It's the dark god showing me what the real world looks like, because this is what my arm is supposed to look like in the true realm. It's the real world crashing through. Thank you, dark gods.
So they believed the realm of chaos is in fact the real world, and they are living in like an imposters type thing. Okay, all right. That kind of goes along with the concept.
Yep.
Oh, it's a flayed one, says man who's only ever seen Boss Baby.
So, Shai wrote about skin wolves. These chaos-tainted men and women, half feral and subject to savage appetites, carry with them a taint in the blood, a mutation that shows not readily as stigmata on their flesh, but slumbers within. When the horror is released, no mere transformation of man into beast is affected. Instead, the humanoid wolf thing, lean and half insane with insatiable hunger, rips its way fully formed from the body of the man, which is left little more than shredded flaps of skin and chunks of bloody gristle by the freeing monster. The frenzied creatures, whose packs are formed by kinship ties of blood and slaughter, care not what they kill in their bloodlust and bear no loyalty to any master save the dark gods themselves. Only once battle is spent and a skin wolf has glutted itself on the raw and dripping gore of its enemies will the terrible transformation be reversed and the bubbling and overworked flesh of the skin wolf collapse. Then, like a newborn, the human within must tear its way out of the monster it once was. Oh, they're werewolves.
That's a werewolf. It's a skin wolf, but it's a werewolf.
Yeah, and it's like specifically, it's like the werewolf from Van Helsing.
Oh, yeah.
Which I love the transformation of werewolves in Van Helsing because it seemed like such a very like the monster like clawing its way out and just I thought it was one of the better things that movie did.
You mean the Hugh Jackman one?
Yeah.
I have such a soft spot for that film. I don't even know if it's necessarily good, but I have a soft spot.
It's not awful actually. It's kind of like the movie version of junk food where it's like, this isn't great, but I kind of like it. It tastes pretty good. I kind of like it. Yeah.
I actually kind of wondered if there was a new like werewolf-based Marvel Rivals skin for Wolverine, and my first thought was like, it's like Van Helsing because Hugh Jackman, Wolverine, and stuff. But I think I'm
Fair
also
enough.
boss babying it a little bit, so it's all right.
Maybe. But the only way to usher yourself into the real world, to seat yourself among the dark gods, to fight by their side for all eternity, is to have lived a courageous warrior's life where you've killed numerous rivals, gained the favor and the mark of chaos, and died in bloody combat. And it's for this reason that the Norscans do not fear death. Rather, they welcome a glorious death with weapons in hand after killing numerous enemies in the name of the Chaos Gods. And the Chaos Gods also, they love it. They fucking love it when you fight in a fruitless, hopeless, futile battle. When you are going up against the worst odds, completely unwinnable, and you are still fighting tooth and nail, and you are still collecting skulls for the skull throne, and you die in a blaze of glory. Oh, brother, the ruinous powers are big fans of that, and they will reward you with the place by their side. I will talk about a specific example of this in just a little bit.
I'm assuming this is kind of like the classic case of, damn, this dude killed so many people, even though he was totally going to die. What a guy.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, pretty much. It's also why it's so hard to fight the Norscans, is because they just don't care. They will go hard after you. They don't care if they die. If they die, hell yeah, let's go to. I was about to say Valhalla, but I guess
close enough.
Close enough. Also, apparently, one of the worst things that can happen to a Norscan is having their hands dismembered in battle. Because if their hands are dismembered, they would end up. They would appear before their chaos god and be like, "Oh shoot, I don't have a weapon. I can't prove that I killed all those people. Oh no!" And it's a very sort of dishonorable, shameful thing to have your hands cut off before dying.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense. It's like, hey, these are like the tools of war in a sense, like the hands themselves.
Which probably a nice little segue to go into, how the Norscans go to war, some of the more notable Norscans, and interestingly enough, like they don't just let anyone call themselves a Norscan warrior. Like you have to undergo specific trials to prove that you are like a proper warrior from the north, a proper Northman. Like sometimes they will just. I do have Valkia on the list, Shy. Yes, that was the specific example of wow, you killed a lot of people. Yeah. But yeah, so sometimes they'll literally just erect fake villages, which I imagine like those Hollywood set towns that have like the 2D cityscapes, and they will fill these sort of fake towns with just thralls. They'll just fill it with slaves that are armed with weapons, and to prove your mettle as a warrior, you need to go into this fake village, raid it, kill all the slaves, and recover some prize that was placed in the middle of the village to prove yourself.
Why is killing all the slaves part of this? Like I feel. Oh, is it because of sacrifices?
I think it's also just because they're just like, well, what else would we have you do? Obviously, of course. Why wouldn't we just kill all the slaves?
I guess it's more like what's the challenge and strength in for the gods than like why killing the slaves? Like it's not a very intense requirement.
True. I guess it's just that notion of just like, oh yeah, that's what you do when you raid a village. Right, you ravage and you rave and you pillage and you get all the stuff and you kill all the people that are against you, and sort of just maybe it's that like, oh, let's see if they got the right mindset, because if they leave any of them behind, that's not a warrior I want to fight with.
Okay, all right. I guess.
And they have some pretty regular ones too, where it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna give you just a spear. You don't get any armor or supplies. Go out and kill a savage beast and show us your mettle. And as I understand it, when Norscan warbands go to war, they may seem like just this mass of crazy barbarians. But each various tribe has like kind of surprisingly distinct tactics that they use to fight. Like some warbands will literally make a phalanx with their shields and their spears to just methodically plow forward while they protect themselves. Some warbands will only use like very specific weapons that they are the most adept with, like axes or swords or spears. And there are some warbands that are just like, you know what? We are only going to protect our front. That's it. The flank is completely unprotected. And that's sort of like this motivation of like, you can't retreat. There's nothing back there. You won't be protected. You will die if you retreat because only the front is protected. And our gods see retreat as cowardice. Why would you want to retreat? Let's go. Let's die in battle, in glorious combat.
Which obviously makes it really damn difficult to deal with dudes who are just like, well, I sure am not scared of death.
Yep. But there was, I feel like that does come back to bite them in the butt because I think it was in the Kislev episode we were talking about Magnus the Pious. He had showed up to like Prague too late or something, but they were still well enough that they could attack the Ever-Chosen's warband from behind because it's not as well defended. And it's so improperly defended that they are just slicing them up from behind with such fervor that literally nobody can get a message to the front or to the Ever-Chosen that like, hey, they are ripping us to shreds back here. We gotta do something. So it's kind of a double-edged sword a little bit when you get into that sort of crazy Ravager only forward mode, right?
Yeah, well, there's no tactics to it for the most part,
Yeah.
right? So that does make sense.
Yep. The Norscans do not fear death. All they fear, more than anything, is disappointing the dark gods, looking weak in front of them, not proving themselves to the ruinous powers. So like I said, these Norscans go absolutely batshit hard on the field. They push themselves harder and faster than sort of your regular warrior. There's also this like really cool tradition I was reading about. It's called the Mound of Blades. And like the name says, it's this big pile of just like weapons that have been plundered from across the world. Some are forged by chaos dwarves, some are crafted by hellsmiths, and like they're just all of these amazing infernal weapons also in this big just mound of blades. But you can't just willy-nilly take from the mound of blades. If you're a warrior and maybe you see something in that mound of blades that you're just like, oof, I gotta have that. To take from the mound of blades, you have to put a weapon in yourself. And it cannot be your own weapon. It has to be a weapon that you have taken from an enemy that you killed on the battlefield.
Okay, so you have to kill someone, yank their stuff, and then put it there to get a new one.
Mm-hmm. And I didn't see any clarification on this, but I'm going to assume that Norscan pride will not allow them to just be like, tee-hee, I killed a thrall, they carried a short sword, I'm going to exchange it for an infernal bastard sword of corn or something. I am going to assume they need an actual proper, like, oh yeah, I killed like...
I killed like dwarf mega hammer man that like explodes when you swing it kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or orc stabba or orc choppa.
And obviously if you get one of these infernal weapons from the Mound of Blades, it becomes like a family heirloom. This thing is like, oh, I claimed this infernal weapon from the Mound of Blades. And you're probably wondering about the amazingly cool armor that you see Chaos Champions wearing because god damn, it's so cool. And while Norscan blacksmiths are pretty exceptional at making weapons and armor, the Chaos armor that the Chaos Champions don is like a whole different beast. Generally, it needs to be forged by a Chaos dwarf. And the Norscans believe that to even make the armor, the one forging it actually needs to impart a piece of their soul into the armor itself. And apparently, it can also happen that the Dark Gods are like, wow, you know what? You did a really good job, Chaos Champion. Let me give you this gift of now you cannot remove the armor ever. And it just gets melded onto their skin.
Yeah, but these people don't care because that's part of their culture, right? They're just like, hell yes.
From what I've read, some people are, but some people are just like, oh my god, this is the worst thing ever. I can't believe I can't take off my armor. This is an infernal prison. Holy shit, I'm gonna try way harder to die in battle because this is just the worst pain ever.
Oh. Well, that sucks.
So, yeah.
I guess, wait, remind me, this might be a stupid question, but remind me, Slaanesh exists in this timeline, right?
Slaanesh does exist in this timeline, yes.
Okay. I guess I only asked because it's like Eldar, from what I remember, and it occurred then, but that would be different time, etc. But I guess time in the warp doesn't matter.
Yeah. So
etc.
all of the chaos gods exist here. You got your Khorne, you got your Nurgle, you got your Slaanesh, you got your Tzeentch, and technically, more or less, you have the Great Horned Rat.
Yeah, so that was kind of the thing that I was thinking of was like, yeah, and the Great Horned Rat, of course. I was kind of thinking about that specifically. Like that suit of armor type thing is 100% a Slaanesh coded type thing. It's Slaanesh just being like, haha.
Kind of Tzeentch coded too, actually, to just be like, oh wow, you did so good, suffering, and it's like, oops.
Shy, what? Shy, he has a penis horn.
Of course he does. Of course they do.
This is giving me flashbacks of Seven with Brad Pitt.
Oh man.
Yeah.
God, I haven't seen that movie in forever. What a oof.
I try not to watch it a lot. It's a tough one.
Yeah, that's one that like you watch it once and it's like, yep, I'm good.
Yep.
I'm good.
That's the end of that.
John Doe does indeed have the upper hand. Wow, Shy. All right. Okay.
Okay.
All right, Shy. But I think this is a great point to start talking about some of their more important warriors, notable Norscans. I only have 3 because I didn't want this to go on for, 60 billion hours. And I think there's no better place to start than Cormac Bloodaxe.
It's basically an orc name at this point.
I know a lot of these Norscan notable people kind of have very orc-coded names. That is very true. But Cormac was the son of a high king named Varag Skulltaker, who'd been slain at the hands of Sigmar Heldenhammer. I think this is before Sigmar became the emperor, and he was kind of just king of the I can never say their name right, Unbrogens. But in Cormac's, it's a tribe that the emperor was part of before he became the emperor.
Okay.
It's a tribe that worships Ulrich, the bear god. Essentially, I can never say the name right. But in Cormac's thirst for vengeance for his father, he would unite the tribes of Norsca while donning his father's army and a bloody axe that was tied to a demon of corn. And it should be noted that even though Cormac, total badass, he was not an Ever-Chosen. He was just a champion of corn, which is still a big deal, still great, but he's not an Ever-Chosen. And Khorne must have loved Cormac because Cormac, in uniting the tribes, was absolutely laying waste to his enemies. He had a stranglehold on the coast. He had become such a threat that Sigmar Heldenhammer himself rallied the forces of the Empire to ride out and stop him. But by this point, Cormac had been he was really pushing into the south, and even the forces of Sigmar could not. By the way, Norse do not call Chaos Champions, they call them Exalted Heroes. I only saw them called Chaos Champions, but okay. Exalted Hero, sure.
Champion of Chaos or whatever.
Mm-hmm. But even the forces of Sigmar couldn't stop Cormac, and Sigmar has to retreat to a place called Middenheim. And Cormac and his forces are following behind, completely. They're laying waste to Sigmar and his empire. It's looking like, oh my God, Cormac Bloodaxe, he's gonna get him. He's gonna absolutely slaughter these fools. But a funny thing happened. One of Cormac's shaman received this vision that he told Cormac about. He was like, listen, I got this vision that showed you fighting alongside a lord of Khorne. It showed you just really going to town. And, Cormac was like, oh, wow, I get to fight alongside a Lord of Corn. Why, that's crazy. How do we make that happen? Because that's really getting my blood pumping. And so the shaman is like, okay, gather eight, eight of your strongest warriors, and we need to sacrifice them to Corn in like this great pit of corpses that we have. And so they go through this ritual, they're doing all this stuff. Corn is like, oh yeah, baby, I'm gonna get to see a Lord of Corn. This is gonna be so cool. Oh man, we're gonna show Sigmar who's boss. But as it turns out, the shaman was not entirely honest with Cormac because the vision didn't speak of Cormac fighting alongside a Lord of Corn. It spoke of Cormac becoming a Lord of Corn.
Ah.
And in that moment, Cormac's body and soul were ripped apart and offered to the dark gods to give birth to a massive, hulking, demonic bloodthirster of Corn.
Does that remove who he was after that?
I feel like the way they describe it is that like Cormac's body and soul were the sacrifice to bring the bloodthirster into existence. I don't know if I'm completely right on that because like he's no longer like tactful. He's no longer. This is just a crazy chaos bloodthirster of Corn. So to me, it implies that Cormac has died and gone to the. He's just straight up gone, and his body, soul were the sacrifice to bring out the bloodthirster. Yeah, he dies to summon the bloodthirster. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, because I wasn't sure if he was in a sense exalted, or if
gotcha.
I guess he was not. It seems like instead he was very much just turned into meat.
Yeah, he was the fuel. And the way the terror that's described and written in this bloodthirster's wake, like Middenheim apparently had these runes to protect it from chaos. Like dwarves had put these special runes on the town to protect it from chaos and demons and stuff like that. And when this bloodthirster comes into existence, just gone. They disintegrate. They just evaporate. Soldiers are fleeing in terror just from seeing the bloodthirster flying overhead. Men are vomiting blood at the sight. And the newly born bloodthirster flies to the heart of Middenheim and lands right near Sigmar. Sigmar has 100 soldiers standing guard with him, and apparently a third of his guard see the bloodthirster and just drop dead out of fear.
I mean,
but of course,
bloodthirsters are that. I mean, I don't know. I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I would tell you. I don't know if I would say that I wouldn't do the same. I mean, look at that thing.
Sure. So I get like I would absolutely uncontrollably piss and shit myself if I saw that in front of me. No doubt about it. Not saying that, but something about just like seeing it and being like, oh my God, that's a and then dying is, like obviously I'm going to be panicked and be like, oh God, that thing's going to kill me. I need to run. I don't know if I would drop dead at the sight of it though.
I feel like there's definitely a warp influence on it though. I mean, you wouldn't.
True,
if you saw that in our real life, you wouldn't start vomiting blood either. But that's definitely something that happens in the weird world of Warhammer.
That's fair. I don't know why I was like, oh, dropping dead. Wow, that's so weird. But the vomiting blood thing, I was like, yeah, sure, checks.
Yeah, we just got to add that last extra bit.
Yeah. But of course, with the aid of his deity Ulrich and some of the realm's finest warriors at his side, Sigmar Heldenhammer, of course, is able to best the newly summoned Bloodthirster. And while Norscans don't love retreating, seeing the Bloodthirster's defeat and knowing that Cormac was no more it absolutely killed their morale. And so they were like, oh, fine, I guess we have to fight our way back to our warships and return north. And I think the craziest part of this story is like, if the shaman hadn't tricked Cormac into becoming a bloodthirster, I feel like they would have had a fair chance at absolutely conquering the Empire. But
really,
it is what it is.
That level.
It kind of felt like they were really like they had the Empire on the run. They had Sigmar retreating. They had beaten them in combat, and it was like they were on the run. And if the Bloodthirster doesn't get killed, that was like the big turning point is Bloodthirster gets killed, no more morale. Oh God, we're screwed. We have to run. Holy, holy. I feel like if he doesn't become a Bloodthirster, maybe they win, or at least they have a good chance at it.
I see where it's coming from. But the Empire has a lot of guns, man.
True, they do. They do. Who knows what would happen if they got to like the Empire proper, like the capital. I think the next important person I want to talk about is the first ever chosen of Chaos, Morcar the Uniter. And unfortunately, his story isn't super unique, but he's still like the first ever chosen. So after the carnage caused by Cormac, Sigmar decides, you know what? These Northmen are kind of a pain in my ass. And so in retaliation, he just goes, he has a campaign to the north where he's just trying to kill as many Norsii as he can. So Sigmar is putting Norsii lands to the torch. He is forcing them further and further north. I believe this is one of the big reasons why Norsca is kind of confined to that upper realm, is because Sigmar is just pushing them further and further and further north. He's also hunting a traitor to the Empire that eventually goes on to become a demon prince, but that's another story for another time. But on his rampage, Sigmar ends up in Morcar's home village, burns it to the ground, and Morcar and the traitor are the only ones that sort of survive Sigmar's wrath. And so Morcar now has this like, oh man, Sigmar, you're a real piece of shit. I need to get my vengeance because you slaughtered us for no reason. I wasn't part of the campaign that you hated. And oddly enough, I didn't really find much of his life after this. Like, the next story beat is literally just, and then he rose to ascendancy as the first ever chosen of Chaos without any real frills or important things he did. Like, I was kind of hoping there'd be like some crazy ritual, or he got some crazy weapon or something like that. But I'm hoping someone in the comments can correct me, or if Shy knows, like, it feels like there should be some pomp and circumstance to the first ever chosen, but there's really not.
Yeah, I mean, don't all need to stand on ceremony, I suppose.
I guess, but Morcar grows up, becomes the first ever chosen, and like, I think it's a year after Sigmar becomes the Emperor. I was going to say the Emperor of Mankind. I guess he does become the Emperor of Mankind. Morcar launches like the most insane invasion that has ever been launched up until this point. Like, it is dwarfing what Cormac did. And naturally, he's known as the Uniter because he had amassed the greatest and most unified army of Norsii that had ever been. Shai said, despite being the first ever chosen, there's very little information concerning Morcar. He's only mentioned in the descriptions concerning the armor of Morcar, stating with the 5th edition Champion of Chaos book, with a brief cameo in the Time of Legends novel God King by Graham McNeil, as well as a brief mention timeline with it. Yeah, that is literally the line that I had found, and I was really hoping that there was like some book or something that really, like, you know, gave him a little more oomph, you know?
Huh. I don't know. It kind of reminds me of, sorry again, Boss Baby. Kind of reminds me of when I looked up Horse, and there was like his life. There was really not much. And so I was like, oh, he's just the guy, you know? His story is that he's the guy.
Yeah, I guess it's not important how he became it. It is important that he did become it and started like the trend of ever chosen. And I guess that's the more important thing.
It's important that he is in fact him.
He is the uniter. He united the North against the Empire, and the Dark Gods are real happy about it. Obviously, they're always happy when an Ever Chosen is born because that is a chaos undivided dude. And so there's dark energies flowing all over the place. Demons are popping up everywhere to fight along the Ever Chosen's army. The Empire is in big trouble. And while the invasion is going well, and it's coming real close, like it gets to the point where Morcar is he's going 1v1 with the Emperor. He's going 1v1 with Sigmar Heldenhammer. He is in their shit fighting their guy. And when the two meet, it was like a battle among gods. Like the way it's described, it's like the earth was splitting apart as they fought, thunder crackling in the sky as their weapons met. The cloud rended apart, the sky seeped apart, waves crashed, tsunamis crashed as metal met armor. It was like the heavens fighting the earth. And this fight would last an entire day and night, and it is an even fight. This is the closest that the Emperor has ever come to being bested and killed in single combat.
You say the Emperor. I know you mean Sigmar, but
I do mean Sigmar.
I know you mean Sigmar, but I mean, I'm not gonna lie. The dude is out there, stripped to his jimmies, just wailing on him with a hammer. He's kind of him.
Sigmar is no joke, right? But Sigmar would finally deliver the killing blow with trusty Gal Miraz and end the invasion of chaos. Morcar's body would be retrieved by the retreating Norsii and buried somewhere unknown in the chaos wastes. I say that because that is very important. When we eventually do an episode on the end times, remember that Morcar's body and his armor are still very much so in play. Or at least his body and his armor are. He's dead for sure.
Right, yeah.
And if we're doing an episode on Norsca and some of their infamous warriors, we have to talk about Wulfric. Wulfric the Wanderer. Wulfric is like the baddest man you will ever come across in the North. He has a history of killing basically everything in the chaos wastes. Every champion you could throw at him, he has killed. Anything that makes the mistake of rivaling him, he has killed. And he makes sure that when he gets a good kill, he decapitates them and displays their skull on his armor. And if you look at that picture of Wulfric, that's a lot of skulls.
That is a shitload of skulls.
Yeah.
Also, the dude's got the Viking mohawk and the beard and stuff.
Yep.
Which is really cool.
And so after a particularly brutal battle called the Battle of Thousand Skulls, where Wulfric just overcomes absolutely staggering odds, claims the head of a rival tribe king, he's having one of those post-battle celebrations for the ages. He is hyping himself up, telling everyone how great he is, how nobody holds, man, I've killed everything you can kill. Ain't nobody can stop me. And during the course of this celebration, after drinking 8 barrels of mead, which is a crazy amount of alcohol.
I mean, yeah, but that's just funny.
True. He's like, oh yeah, you know what? There is no warrior in this realm, the next, or in chaos that could rival me. I am him. And then he kind of passes out. And more or less, the chaos gods were like, oh really, Wulfric? And as Wulfric is passed out, he goes on this sort of like visionary journey with an emissary of chaos. And this emissary tells Wulfric that the gods are kind of pissed. They're like, how dare you say that you're better than any of them, any of their champions? How could you think so highly of yourself? But also they're like, let's at least let Wulfric try to prove himself. So they give him the sort of unending quest of more or less being their own personal executioner. They would basically grant him a vision of the strongest, craziest, most insane warrior that they wanted him to kill, and he had to go find it and kill it. And if he failed, specifically, they tell him that demons would relish torturing, tearing, and ripping his soul apart for all of eternity in unending torture and agony, and you will know the shame of never walking with your dark gods in the true world.
What the hell, man?
What the hell, man?
What the hell, man?
What the hell, man? That's one way to put it. And when Wulfric wakes up from this vision, he also realized that his tongue had been mutated by the dark gods, and now it was almost this like bird-like twisted kind of forked tongue. And this tongue could speak any language. And the dark gods did this because it's like, oh yeah, now if we send you to fight someone in Lustria, and it's just like lizardmen speak, you can now speak that language and you can challenge them. And I think I read that his words specifically, like because of his tongue, it does something to people he challenges where they're like, ooh, this guy is a piece of shit. Ooh, I gotta fight him. Ooh, I need to. Ooh. So they really get compelled to fight him. And he would sail the seas at the greatest speeds because he has a special longship called Sea Fang. It is claimed to be able to travel in a blink of an eye, and he had to defeat a chaos sorceress to obtain it. And so now Wulfric spends all of his time sort of as like this executioner for the dark gods, slaying and killing the craziest of crazy enemies. There's a lot more on him, but I feel like Wulfric kind of deserves his own episode at some point down the line. So I feel like this is a nice little introduction to him. And the last person I want to talk about to round out this episode, I really want to talk about Valkia the Bloody. So Valkia was this absolutely savage warrior queen of a tribe called the how am I going to try and pronounce this?
Is this the one that the Chai was poking at earlier?
Yep, this is the one. But she was the warrior queen of a tribe called the Schwarzwolf that was holy. She is just completely devoted to corn. Unending devotion to corn. And she was so savage that when she came into power, when she led her tribe, she called any of the weakest members. It didn't matter if you were family or not, because she killed her stepmother, killed her stepsister, and at one point, she kills her own husband when he mentions one too many times that he's like, you know, it would be really cool if one of our sons inherited leadership from you, wife, because it's way more normal for a Norscan tribe to be led by a man. And he says this one too many times. She's like, okay, goodbye.
Hey, you know, slay.
Yeah, slay, queen, slay. And one day, there would be a demon prince of Slaanesh that would come to her chambers in disguise. Their name was Losifax. And they were just so enthralled with Valkia's beauty that they were like, hey, forget corn. You should become my pleasure slave, because the powers I'll grant you as my pleasure slave are way more fun than corn. Corn's a doof. Naturally, Valkia did not take kindly to this. Yeah, and literally challenged a demon prince of Slaanesh to a duel.
Let's go.
Yeah, and Losifax was like, oh, this is gonna be light work. Like, come on, how is a mortal gonna challenge a demon prince? You're crazy, lady. Lo and behold, though, their fight ravaged and raved again for a whole day and a whole night. And Valkia doesn't get exhausted because she's just so fucking pissed at him. Like, her rage and her fury are fueling her past what her normal self would do, and she is just going ham on him until finally Valkia's spear literally cleaves the head of Losifax clean off its shoulders. And Valkia takes the head of the demon prince Losifax, nails it to her shield for all to see. Look at this bitch! And she proclaims that she is going to take this trophy of trophies and she is going to enter the Chaos Wastes and deliver the head of this demon prince of Slaanesh to Khorne, the blood god himself. She is going to sit it at his feet so he can put it on his throne. But The Chaos Wastes, as we've mentioned, are a treacherous place filled with foul beasts. And while Valkia made a valiant effort to reach a portal to the realm of Khorne, she was suffering ambush after ambush after ambush from the followers of Slaanesh, who are kind of seeking revenge for what she had done to their demon prince and for, slathering his head on her shield.
Naturally.
Yep. And even though she's fighting, she's getting every ambush she can, eventually she does die and fall in combat to these ambushes. But her efforts were not in vain because Khorne had been watching, very interested, and man, he was so impressed with everything she had done in his name. And so he saw fit to reform her, to give rebirth to her. And so I think I read it was like you could hear this just boom across the entire world. Mountains are shaking, shockwaves are forming, and Valkia is reborn, and she is given like these. I think it's described as like, oh yeah, her skull is pulled back into the form of horns. She gets like these crazy blood wings. She gets the legs of a bloodletter, and she is reborn as the first
Demon Princess of Khorne. Women can commit war crimes too, baby.
Yes, they can. And he would give her a new purpose. She becomes the first demon princess of Khorne, and he gives her like a new purpose. She is to find the most brave, honorable, and craziest among their dead and ferry them back to Khorne so that Khorne can like sort of revitalize them and allow them to fight alongside him forever. And this would be the birth of the first shield maiden of Khorne, the Gore Queen, bringer of glory, dread consort of Khorne, queen of skulls. Yep, she's a Valkyrie.
I was about to say this is just a blood Valkyrie, basically.
And I know comments and chat are gonna mention this, but yes, there is also a very important Everchosen, the 13th Everchosen Archaeon, who, like I said, is ridiculously important, but he is so end times coded that there's no way we can talk about him in just this episode. He's either going to get his own episode or he's going to be like the focal point of the end times episode. So that is where I'm going to, for now, bring the Norsca episode to a close.
I really like the fact that the what is it? That like obviously the thing that would make Khorne the happiest would be someone murdering a Slaanesh demon.
Demon Prince of Slaanesh, yeah.
It's a very Khorne coded thing as well. It's pretty fun.
Yep, and she's just completely devoted to Khorne. I think she anointed her children to Khorne when she was in power, and she was just very devoted, very, very good at killing people. Also, she probably collected a lot of skulls. But yeah, the North, right? Crazy.
Huh. They're about what I expected. Maybe they work together a bit more than I expected, I think. I think that's the biggest surprise to me was that they spend more time working together than I genuinely thought they would. And I genuinely thought they would just be spending a lot more time murdering each other.
Yeah, they're surprising. It's weird because as I was like reading stuff on this, I was like, like with the way they're very like community oriented, they actually respect their elders and all this. I was like, man, it seems like if you took a lot of the like Ungls from the Kislev and you just gave him a little chaos flavor, you've essentially got the Northmen.
Yeah, a little. Right? I mean, a little bit of that, but I mean, isn't that most factions in Warhammer?
I guess that's true. Like Chaos Space Marines was like, oh yeah, it's a Space Marine, but if you just gave it a little zest of chaos, right?
Or well, sometimes it can be a lot more than a little zest, but like, it's like this thing, and then like make it more Egyptian, and then slap on some crons or something, like going from there.
Yeah. I was gonna ask Shai because I had seen that exact art and I wasn't sure what happened to Losifax, because I obviously I couldn't research every little thing about her, but I just loved her like origin story. Her shield is still the demon prince that tried to take her. The blood god embedded the essence of the Slaaneshi demon prince within Valkia's shield, permanently imprisoning Losifax. Let's fucking go.
Yeah.
Stay winning, Valkia. Stay winning.
Meanwhile, Angron beats demon prince of Slaanesh directly into a weapon and then uses that weapon to kill people.
Let's go. Korn knows how to make a weapon.
I feel like we're
Let's
getting a
go.
little too Destiny pilled here. There are too many people being turned into guns.
Oh yeah. Oh Destiny.
Oh, Destiny.
Destiny.
That's a classic thing. Is they always love to turn people into guns.
Mm-hmm. But see, pretty short, concise episode. At only just under an hour and a half.
Yeah, I was about to say every one of these episodes is like an hour and change.
Yeah, I really tried to make it a more general picture of Norsca too, and where it was like, oh yeah, let me not go into each little battle that they've done and every person, and it's still, I felt like this was generally gonna be short.
We also wanted to include Beastmen into this. Oh god, the Beastmen.
The Beastmen, yeah, yep. So, general little overview of the North. So yeah.
All right. I mean, I'm. What was the last one that we did where I was like, this is exactly what I thought it would be on the tin?
Kislev, right?
Yeah, this I'm kind of getting the same vibe here. It's like, all right, you want Chaos Vikings, and if someone was given a prompt for Chaos Vikings, this is about what I think it would come up with.
Yeah, they are basically Chaos Vikings from the North, the Norse, the Norsca.
Yep, I believe it. I fully believe it. Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, brother.
Good stuff, man. I like them. They're fun. They're goofy.
Yeah. They're very chaos pilled and very goofy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, being chaos pilled and being goofy, just like the combo in its own right, it's a good mixture. Hell yeah. All right. Anything to leave us on specifically, or
blood for the blood god.
Skulls for the Skull Throne?
Hell yeah, brother.